All right, we moved here in 2020 and I wanted to look at some of the real estate market growth over that time. And I want to look at my own house. I don't want to speculate. Let's look at the details of my own house. Let's do it. I'm Sam, and thanks for coming by the Living in Tampa channel, where we make videos about what it's like to live and move to the Tampa, Florida area. If that's something you want to follow along with, don't forget to subscribe. Also, I promised a while ago that I would be making a Newport Richie video soon, and I still am working on that. That still will be coming. We did have a baby a month ago, so some of those videos out on the road have been a little bit slower to get to, but I have a lot of ideas about Newport Richie that I want to share, and I'll get that out soon. So my wife and I moved here from Colorado at the beginning of June in 2020. Actually, I started driving the big 26-foot truck, towing one of our cars on May 27th, stopped a few times along the way, and got here a few days later. We stayed in a short-term rental for a while. It was actually a family member's property that we were able to stay for really cheap, even though it wasn't very nice and not in a very nice area, but it did the trick for a while, and it was a nice place to land for really cheap. And based on that experience is often why I recommend that people stay in short-term rentals when they first move here, because during the summer, especially when a lot of you are moving because your kids are out of school, short-term rentals are a little bit cheaper than they are in the winter. So the short-term rentals are pretty consistent with long-term rentals during the summer, but during the winter, those short-term rentals are really expensive because everyone's trying to escape the cold and get down here. But it's actually pretty cold right now. It's like under 50 degrees outside, and people here are soft about it. Myself included. I've only been here for a year and a half, but I'm already like weak with the cold. It's a little bit embarrassing. So anyway, we were staying in this short-term rental, and we were kind of shopping for a house. And we weren't looking very aggressively. We were looking at some different areas and trying to decide how close we wanted to be to family and other things we wanted to be close to. At the time, our daughter was 2 and we were planning on having more kids, so we were kind of weighing all of these factors. You know, what schools do we want to be close to? Do we want to have the beach really accessible? Do we want to have grandparents really accessible? And all of these factors. So the house that we ended up purchasing is in Tarpon Springs, which is this small town on the north side of Pinellas County. And it really does kind of feel like a small town. I mean, it's 24,000 people, and it kind of runs into the next towns pretty seamlessly into like East Lake and Palm Harbor. So they all kind of feel like the same town to me since I didn't grow up here. But after being here a year and a half, Tarpon has a very small town vibe compared to other areas like Dunedin or Clearwater or these other areas in Pinellas County. The house that we purchased is a 3-bedroom, 1,800 square foot house on a 1/4 of an acre. And we paid $292,000. But for the examples going forward, I'm just gonna refer to it as $300,000 just to make the math a little easier so I don't stumble around it too much. So they were actually asking $300,000 and we negotiated that down to $292,000. During the contract period and specifically the inspection, we realized that the roof was really at the end of its life. It was rated for 20 years and it was 17 years old. So I went pretty hard and asked them to just replace it. And they said no. So then I asked them for $9,000 for it and they said no. Then they said, we'll give you $4,500 for it. So that came in concession. So that was just $4,500 less that we had to put down in our down payment. And we were doing a 20% down payment on this. So that's around $60,000 at the $300,000 purchase price. Another thing that shocked us was actually the flood insurance, since it is in a flood zone and the house is pretty low, and our lender required us to purchase flood insurance from FEMA. That is about $2,000 a year on top of our regular insurance, which is another $2,000 a year, because you know, our wind coverage is a little more intense because we are so close to the water, so close to the coast, and we're in this flood zone. So that's $4,000 a year for insurance. That includes all insurance. And then we had another $4,000 in taxes per year. And that goes down a little bit the second year when you claim a homestead exemption, which I'm not sure if I've talked much about homestead exemptions. I should talk about that a little bit more. That's one of the advantages of living in your house in Florida. The biggest advantage of the homestead exemption is that your property taxes don't increase with the property value. They increase a little more consistently. So we actually had to pay that $4,000 for insurance up front, and then we had to pay that $4,000 for taxes up front. So our total out of pocket with the down payment minus the $4,500 plus the $8,000 for insurance and taxes plus closing costs was around $72,000. And if you saw the last video linked up above, then you realize where that money came from. So this is where things get kind of interesting. After living in the house about 6 months, I get a text. It says, would you be interested in selling part of your property? Maybe it said your property on this certain street. And this was late at night. I didn't really see it. Next morning I saw it. I was like, huh, that's interesting. So of course, one of my first thoughts is this real? Is this a scam? This seems like such a casual text to receive. But I just go ahead and respond to it very sincerely and ask for more information and just tell them, you know, if we're gonna sell part of our yard, it's gonna need to be a pretty enticing offer. So our lot at the time was 100 feet by 100 feet. So pretty big lot. And they come with their first offer and offer $20,000 for 30 feet along one edge of this property. We think, it's not bad. We didn't think somebody would be offering us $20,000 for a random chunk of our yard. But I hit them back and I say, okay, how about 30,000 for 20 feet? So I asked for more money and less distance. And I had been out there measuring and stuff, trying to see like what the actual impact of it would be. So they come back again and they say, okay, we'll do the 20 feet and we can offer you 25,000. So we accept at that price. Then it's kind of moving forward. It takes a couple days to get all the contracts drawn up, and they're reaching out to the county to kind of get these building plans approved for the lot that's next to us. And then they come back to us and say the county actually said we need 24 feet for our building plans, and we're willing to give you 30,000 for that. So it started at 20,000 for 30 feet and we ended at 30,000 for 24 feet, and we felt really great about it. We got a check that we were able to cash within a few days. Just because we lived there, we had the opportunity to sell this grass. So you could think of this a few different ways. I mean, you could think of that just going straight off the down payment. Now it's like we only put $40,000 down on the house instead of $70,000. There's a lot of ways you can think about this. One of the things we did with this money is we spent some of the money on a new roof and new blown-in insulation in the attic. The attic had old insulation. It was like an inch thick from the 60s. And this new blown-in insulation actually reduced our electric bill by $100 a month throughout the summer whenever the air conditioning's running really hard. So September 2020, we purchased the house for around $300,000. Right now, Zillow estimates that it's worth about $400,000. And I think I could probably sell it for $400,000 because Zillow doesn't know about the roof. They don't know about that shelving I built in the pantry. They don't know about, you know, some of the other little details that we would add and that we would stage it really well. So if we were to sell this house today, let's look at the money we would walk away with. So essentially we would get our down payment back. So that $70,000 we would get back, plus $100,000 in appreciation, minus about $30,000 in fees, realtor fees, all those kind of things, closing costs. So we would end up with about $135,000 in cash. And some of the appreciation too is money that we've already paid in mortgage payments and all those kind of things, and it kind of feels like we're getting some of that back. So I don't want to pretend like all of this is just net income. That's not how it works. If this was a business, you would not think of it that way. And when you look at all of these numbers, like don't forget we also got that $30,000 for 24 feet of our yard, and we got the $4,500 in concessions toward the roof. So we're actually sitting pretty good with this property, but it's only because we were willing to buy it that all of this happened. And like I've said before, buying a house is not for everyone, but there aren't many other ways that are easy to make this money unless you're like really good at trading options or something like that. It's hard to make this amount of money with this little work in this amount of time. Part of the value of owning a house is owning something that someone else wants. And if you are purchasing in Florida, you're purchasing in an area that people want. Although I wish I could tell you that for sure your properties are going to increase in value no matter what, I can't say that. I don't know the future. But in the long term, the market goes up and people are moving here like crazy. And if you're one of those that's trying to move here, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are realtors here at the Living in Tampa team. Our phone number and email are right there on the screen and in the description down below. Thanks for coming by.